Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a real masterclass based on Dr. Kem's comprehensive lecture. We're going to understand exactly how infrared light reveals the hidden, microscopic dances of molecules using a technique called Fourier Transform Infrared Spectroscopy, or FTIR. It might sound a little intimidating at first, but by the end of this, you'll see just how elegantly simple the underlying physics truly is. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the basics of IR spectroscopy, cover the criteria for IR absorption, look at the types of molecular vibrations, dive into Hooke's law and frequency, and finally wrap up with how FTIR instruments actually work. Let's get right to it. All right, so let's kick things off with the brilliant foundational concepts derived from our sources. Just like human fingerprints, literally no two unique molecules absorb infrared radiation in exactly the same way. When infrared light passes through a sample, some of that light gets absorbed by the material and some of it transmits right through. If we measure what gets absorbed, we get this highly specific energy signature. It's an exact molecular fingerprint that lets scientists rapidly and precisely identify chemical bonds and molecular structures. Section 1. Criteria for IR absorption. The rules of engagement. Because, a molecule doesn't just absorb any random beam of light that hits it. It actually has to follow two very strict rules. For a molecule to absorb infrared energy, rule number 1 states that the incoming light's frequency absolutely must perfectly match the natural vibrational frequency of a specific bond in that molecule. If it doesn't match perfectly, the light just passes right through. Take hydrogen chloride, for instance. It has a natural vibrational frequency of about 8.7 times 10 to the power of 13 per second. It will only absorb infrared light at that exact frequency. Then we have rule number 2, which is the vital selection rule. The molecule's electrical charge distribution, its electric dipole moment, has to actually change during that vibration. The positive and negative charges on the atoms must experience forces in opposite directions. And this perfectly illustrates why those rules matter so much in the real world. Think about a heteronuclear molecule, meaning it's made of two different atoms, like hydrogen and chlorine. That is infrared active. Because those two atoms have different electronegativities, there's a charge imbalance. As that bond expands and contracts, the distance between the charges changes, creating a fluctuating dipole moment that interacts with the infrared light. But what about a perfectly symmetrical homonuclear molecule, like oxygen or nitrogen? The atoms are identical, so they pull in electrons equally. No matter how much that bond stretches or compresses, the net dipole moment stays at absolute zero. Because of that, it is completely infrared inactive. It's totally invisible to an IR spectrometer. Which brings us to section 2, types of molecular vibrations, or what I like to call the molecular dance. Once those absorption criteria are successfully met, the molecules absorb the energy from the infrared light and start vibrating with increased amplitude. They literally start to dance. It's super interesting how this stretching changes the actual bond length between atoms. Our sources show two main types. First, symmetrical stretching. This is where the surrounding atoms move either away from or towards the central atom in perfect unison. They are totally synchronized. Second, we have asymmetrical stretching, where one atom approaches the center while the other atom simultaneously pulls away. Since highly symmetrical vibrations often result in little to no change in the dipole moment, they're generally much weaker in an IR spectrum compared to those highly active asymmetric stretches. But hey, molecules don't just stretch, they also bend. Bending vibrations are fundamentally different because they alter the bond angles and the bond axis rather than the lengths of the bonds themselves. Imagine taking two arms of a V shape and squeezing them closer together. Because it's physically a lot easier to bend a chemical bond than it is to stretch or compress it, bending requires less energy. So in an IR spectrum, bending vibrations are going to show up at longer wavelengths, which means lower wave numbers, than stretching vibrations. The crucial point here is visualizing this dynamic three-dimensional movement. Bending vibrations are categorized by how they move relative to a plane. We've got in-plane deformations. Scissoring is exactly what it sounds like, two atoms moving back and forth toward each other like scissor blades. Rocking is when they swing back and forth together in the same direction, kind of like a pendulum. Then we have out-of-plane deformations. Think wagging, where two atoms oscillate up and below the plane together, or twisting, where one atom comes up above the plane while the other pushes down below it. Each of these specific geometric moves creates its own beautifully unique energy signature. Section 3, Hooke's law and frequency, the physics of the bond. Let's look at how this molecular dance builds into mathematical certainty. We can actually predict where these peaks will appear on a spectrum using a concept from classical mechanics called Hooke's law. Hooke's law tells us that the exact frequency of these microscopic vibrations isn't random at all. It's strictly controlled by just two fundamental variables. The first is the stiffness of the bond. That's the force constant, represented by the letter K. The second variable is the mass of the atoms at each end of the bond. To keep the math simple, chemists combine the individual atomic masses into a single value known as the reduced mass, or the Greek letter mu. You can think of this exactly like a guitar string. If you tighten a guitar string, which is like increasing the force constant of a chemical bond, it vibrates faster, giving you a higher pitch or higher frequency. And a thinner, lighter string is going to vibrate a lot faster than a thick, heavy bass string. In molecular terms, tighter, stronger bonds connecting lighter atoms will vibrate at a much higher frequency. On the flip side, loose, single bonds holding incredibly heavy atoms vibrate much slower, showing up at the lower frequency end of our spectrum. Section 4. How FTIR instruments work. Taking a look inside the machine. So now that we deeply understand the molecular physics, the strict criteria, the complex vibrations, and the math of Hooke's law, how do we actually capture these fingerprints in a lab? Historically, scientists had to use dispersive IR spectroscopy, and let me tell you, it was a painstaking method. They'd shine infrared light onto a diffraction grating or prism, physically separate the light by wavelength, pass it through a tiny slit, and measure just one single monochromatic wavelength at a time. They'd measure the absorbance, mechanically turn the grating to the next wavelength, and repeat. As you can imagine, this was an incredibly slow and tedious process. But then, Fourier Transform Infrared, or FTIR, came along and totally revolutionized the field. FTIR completely ditches that slow diffraction grating. Instead, it relies on an optical device called an interferometer. Because of the interferometer, an FTIR spectrometer doesn't check one wavelength at a time. It measures all wavelengths of infrared light simultaneously. This makes FTIR incredibly fast, vastly more sensitive, and frankly, the absolute gold standard for modern materials characterization. So how does that interferometer actually pull this off? The light waves travel through it, get split, and then recombined. As those waves interact, they experience both constructive and destructive interference, building a highly complex, raw data signal called an interferogram. To the human eye, an interferometer just looks like a messy jumble of waves. But inside the computer, a brilliant mathematical algorithm called a fast Fourier Transform, or FFT, instantly decodes that signal. It translates the raw interference pattern right back into the beautiful, distinct frequency peaks that make up the readable molecular fingerprint. And the craziest part? The technology isn't stopping there. The sources we reviewed point to cutting-edge advancements like optical photothermal infrared, or OPTIR, which combines a pulsed laser with this foundational physics to generate chemical images at sub-micron spatial resolution, literally without even needing to prep the sample. Which leaves us with a thrilling thought. As advanced optics and deep learning algorithms increasingly merge with the principles of Hooke's law and molecular vibrations we've explored today, how much deeper into the molecular universe will the next generation of this technology take us? Thanks for tuning in to today's Explainer, and keep seeking out the fascinating structures hidden just out of sight.